extraordinary wisdom that the Jewish people had did not stop them from sinning, though. Did not stop them from doing things that were forbidden. And unfortunately, this is the type of behavior that HaKadosh Baruch Hu warned Am Yisrael about over and over again, to no avail. Now, the question is, what does that have to do with now? In order to answer that, we'll first have to go back 200 years. So fast forward a couple of thousand years from the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, but not quite to today. We're going to go back to the 1800s. In a book written some time ago, about 60 years ago, 50 years ago, called The History of Zionism. I believe that if this book was published today, or written today, no publishing house would want to publish it. They would view it as anti-Semitic. And one of the reasons is because it actually tells real history. History that often you're not going to hear from rabbis. And people like to forget, even if they remember. Anti-Semitism did not begin during the Holocaust. In fact, anti-Semitism has been standard throughout most of Jewish history. In Europe, until the French Revolution, the Jewish people were forbidden from being part of normal society. And while the rabbis, the Orthodox rabbis, liked this segregation and believed that it was a separation and a blessing, the ones that wanted to advance, that wanted to prosper, did not like this so much. In fact, they hated it, and they did everything possible to bring an enlightenment. One of the leaders of the Enlightenment movement was a wicked person named Moshe Mendelssohn, who said that as a Jew, my son could only become a physician, a trader, and a beggar. And he hated this. He wanted his son to be something else. And once the revolution began and the Jews were allowed to slowly enter into all types of commerce, there was only one thing that was holding them back, according to them at least, from being accepted by society like everybody else. And that was the fact that they were Jewish. And therefore it became a thing for Jews to abandon Judaism, and in fact, hate it. And despite some of the restrictive laws, social assimilation made rapid progress during the early decades of the 19th century. Many Jews moved from the villages into large towns where they could find better living quarters. They sent their children to non-Jewish schools and modernized their religious service. And among the intellectuals, there was a growing conviction that a new Judaism, purged of medieval obscurism, was an intermediate stage towards enlightened Christianity. In so many words, many Jews believed that you have to abandon Judaism altogether and go and join the Christians, convert to Christian idolatry, in order to advance in life. And as the author writes here, I'm going to quote several things he says. This again, it's the book called The History of Zionism. He says, towards the middle of the 19th century, a person by the name of Gabriel Reiser, the most eloquent and courageous advocate of emancipation, suggested that a Jew who preferred a non-existent state and a nation, meaning Israel, over Germany, ought to be put under police protection, not because his views were dangerous, but because he was obviously insane. Meaning to view anything better than Germany, and even want a state like Israel, in his perspective, and he's a Jew, is insanity. And he didn't stop there. He actually wrote that whoever disputes my claim, this is the Gabriel Reiser, whoever disputes my claim to the German fatherland, he, on this occasion, disputes my right to my thought and feelings, to the language that I speak, the air that I breathe. He deprives me of my very right to existence, and therefore I must defend myself against him as I would against a murderer. Does this sound similar to some of you that watch some of this liberal media, lefty liberalism, and all of this other junk that's out there? Well, if it hasn't yet, wait till the rest of it sets in. Reiser summarizes philosophy, the spiritual marriage of Judaism and Germany, in a rhyme device, where he says, we have one Father in heaven and one Mother, God the Father of all beings, and Germany the mother on earth. One of the leading Orthodox rabbis in 1848 wrote about the young Jews of the time that 9/10 of them were ashamed of their faith. Statements like these were abound. They were perhaps not meant to be taken literally, but they indicated a general trend, says the author. And of Moshe Mendelssohn's children, all but one converted to Christianity, and many of his followers left Judaism and converted to Christianity. Another person by the name of Hein, who converted to Christianity, says baptism was an entrance ticket to European civilization. And who would let a mere formality stand between me and a European civilization? Meaning, for him, converting to Christianity, Catholicism, was simply a necessary step, like getting a college degree today. Now, if this was only the few that did it, then this would be good news. But unfortunately, this became a standard. In fact, young women and older women joined this ideology, started opening all types of houses where they would literary salons in Berlin and Vienna. Some of the famous women were Rachel Varnhagen, Henriette Ertz, Dorothea Schlegel, Fanny Arnstein. These were some of the primary hostesses at the time, and they entertained all types of famous people, statesmen, generals, princes, poets. Anybody that was anybody would come to their places. And of course, these platonic and not so platonic, as the author says, affairs of these ladies were very ridiculous. There was an element of madness in the general malaise of the Romantic age, but there was nothing specifically Jewish about these places or this time. All the great Berlin hostesses eventually became Christians. Mendelssohn's daughter, Dorothy, converted first to Protestantism and then, following the Romantic fashion, to Catholicism. His other daughter, Henriette Hertz, said about her father, Moses Messens, that he possessed virtues of a Christian. For Rachel Varhagen, she hated Judaism so much that she would often say that the fact that she was born Jewish was the biggest tragedy of her life. As if a dagger penetrated her heart the moment that she was born. She considered it a disgrace to her life, a suffering, a misfortune. In so many words, the standard Jew in Europe hated Judaism no less than the anti-Semites. Self-hating Jews was not a new thing of this generation. As the Jewish middle class started to rise, the attitude towards Judaism itself worsened. In 1899, the person by the name of Fontaine wrote that intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews became a mass phenomenon. And few people noted because it was regarded as perfectly natural, and nobody made a fuss about it, meaning intermarriage became standard, similar to how it is today in America, and in Canada, and in England, and in pretty much everywhere there are Jews today. The Jasons of 1825 were all Hegelians, at least for a while. Hegel wrote that Judaism was the world of the wretched, the misfortune, ugliness, a world lacking inner unity and harmony. These Jews were ashamed of their origin. Rachel Varhagen said that she liked to study Jena because there were so few Jews around. Another person by the name of Born reported that in his university there was very few Jews and none of them would ever walk next to each other. They would all hide that they're Jewish. It got to the point that in Berlin, one of the compliments that you can give a Jew is that there was nothing specifically Jewish about him. This is over 100 years before the Holocaust. And I know that some of you are surprised that it's not today. But it is today. With the growing social and cultural differentiation inside the community, the more educated were more often ashamed of their less fortunate co-religionists, who were less assimilated than themselves, but with whom they were nevertheless identified in the public mind. In so many words, the Jews that have abandoned Judaism, call them secular Jews, or Jews that have adopted Christianity, hated religious Jews. Exactly what's happening in Israel right now and in other places around the world. There is such a hatred between the secular Jew and the religious Jew right now that the secular Jews literally believe that the things that were said about the Jewish people in Mein Kampf were only relevant to the religious Jews, which is the exact opposite, actually. Some of the things they're saying literally on radio stations in Israel, some of the things that are being said here in America by Jews. We're not talking about anti-Semites that are American, Nazis. No. We're talking about Jews speaking about other Jews. Even Jews like Modi that considers himself religious. What he actually says about Judaism and the Torah. These types of statements are not different than what was said a couple of 100 years ago. They would literally warn each other from associating with religious Jews. You must be careful not to look at them or take an interest in them, as if religious Jews were like a plague of some kind. One of the future socialist leaders, a person by the name of LaSalle, said that he loathed the Jews. So much so that he considered them degenerates, descendants of slaves, with mentality of slaves, who were only created to be slaves, cowardly people who don't deserve a better lot because you were born to be servants. This is what he felt about his fellow Jews. But interestingly enough, the vast majority of these people converted to Christianity. Born was baptized. Hein converted after writing one of his closest friends that he wouldn't convert, but he converted nonetheless. But then later on, he wrote that he regretted converting, and he was hated by the Christians and the Jews alike, meaning the conversion didn't help him. Now, it's often said that the worst happened in Germany. There's no real statistics that you can guarantee, but the author brings that there were actually more conversions of Jews to Christianity in England, in Russia, and in Austria, and Hungary, than even in Germany. Meaning, as bad as the situation was in Germany, with the intermarriage, according to some statistics in PU research, that there was literally nearly 90% intermarriage in Germany, the situation was even worse in England, in Russia, in Austria. Some people said that literally half the people in Berlin converted to Christianity, meaning half the Jews. Regardless, the author says the most gifted Jews in every walk of life, and above all the leaders, the intelligentsia, those that attain social status, economic, political status, prominence, nearly all of them converted to Christianity. In some communities, almost all of the leading families converted. Often the parents would hesitate to convert, but they would baptize their kids. The theologian Schleiermacher announced that Judaism was dead, while his colleague von Schroetel, who was a Prussian minister, said, no, it's not dead yet. Give it 20 years. They're dead. We're still here, Baruch Hashem. The ultimate goal of all of these Jews, nearly 100 years before the Holocaust, was to Europeanize Judaism by purging it from its roots. Some of them were suggesting to ban Hebrew and the Talmud. things that even the biggest anti-Semites have not suggested. And even if they suggested, they didn't succeed. This was coming from Jews, Rabotai. This was coming from Jews. I know that the anti-Semites are going to have a field day. But let them have a field day while we learn the truth of what got us to the point of destruction. This doesn't justify the evil of those that killed us, and our brothers and our grandparents. But needless to say, we have to know that there is a din and there's a dayan. There's a judge and there's a judgment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not allow Esav to hurt Yaakov unless Yaakov acts like Esav. One of the followers of Mendelssohn, a person by the name of Ben Siv, complained that Hebrew was disappearing. And he blamed this on the parents that abandoned Judaism and their conservative rabbis. The parents wanted their children to learn only subjects that would assist them in a professional career. Languages, mathematics, sciences. Does that sound familiar? You go to yeshiva today? Yeah. So you're going to become an avrech? No. My parents want me to go to college. They want me to be a doctor. Okay, fine. You can be a doctor, but why don't you go learn Torah for another few years? Not to go be a doctor. No. My parents want me to be an engineer. Okay, fine. You can be an engineer, but why don't you learn a few hours a day? No. My parents are paying a lot of money for tuition, so I can become an astronaut. I can become an accountant. I can become everything but a Talmid Chacham. Why don't you become a Talmid Chacham? No, they don't make enough money. Said it, but you said you like Torah. Yeah, but my parents said that I need to make money. I literally have kids crying to me, telling me that they want to learn Torah, but their parents won't let them. Their parents are forcing them to go into a career. And then the parents are going to cry when that career doesn't bring any salvation. This is not the first time. 200 years ago, 100 years before the Holocaust, same thing was done by parents back then, Jewish parents back then, forcing their kids to go to school in order to learn all types of subjects that would help them in a professional career and stay away from Torah. The Orthodox rabbis at the time certainly acted the opposite. They banned worldly subjects altogether because the science was not taught for the sake of objectivity in education, but rather for the sake of destroying Judaism. And while at the time of Mendelssohn, Jews still considered themselves a Jewish nation, a few years later, the Jews started referring to themselves as a Mosaic confession. In so many words, people that are connected to Moses. And the religious reform movement gathered momentum. Throughout the first half of the century, they changed the Siddur. So much so that the national, rather than the religious content, that those of national rather than religious content or referring to the coming of the Mashiach were deleted. Anything relating to Mashiach, they deleted. So the prayers we have about in the morning blessings or in a Shachrit, Uba Letzion Goel Sheve Pesha B'Yaakov, the Reform rabbis removed it from the Siddur. What they replace the statements of Mashiach with, they started bringing organs and all types of musical instruments into the synagogue, or they started calling them temples instead of synagogue. They started giving the girls and boys a confirmation, which is something that Jews do not do. The Reform rabbis went against the Orthodox rabbis and dropped completely the issues of mikveh and even the mourning and funeral process of Judaism. Some even changed the religious services from Shabbat to Sunday, like the Christians, and started telling the parents, the Jewish parents, they don't need to circumcise their kids anymore if they don't want to. Why deform the kid? And if that wasn't enough, they started singing Christian songs in these temples, lighting candles of the Hanukkah candelabra while having a Christmas tree next to it. By the 1850s and 60s, these Enlightenment movement types of people were happy because they felt that they reached equality with Germany and Austria and Hungary and Italy and Scandinavia. They felt that they had civil equality. By 1858, the first British Jew entered the parliament, and by 1870, Jews were allowed to attend English universities. There was still some anti-Semitism, but not as public as the previous century. And the Jewish community, or Jewish people that lived next to each other, felt that they were truly enlightened. Success. They were optimistic. They were prospering. They started acquiring great riches. They started going into all forms of business and industry. All types of professions. And by 1905, less than 5% of the population of Berlin were Jews. But yet, they provided 30% of the municipal tax revenue, meaning the Jews became extraordinarily wealthy. 5% of the population, 30% of the taxes. If I was reading this in a newspaper today about America, not a single person would doubt it. Not a single person would question it. History is repeating itself. Now, although I've said this in the past, unfortunately, not enough people have heard it. I believe more anti-Semites have heard my message than Jews. Some anti-Semites actually have abandoned their ways and actually adopted a good lifestyle, following the Torah, either as righteous Noahides and even in a couple of cases, converting to Judaism. Some anti-Semites continued in their wicked ways. And their end will be no different than Nebuchadnezzar and the rest of the wicked people that lived throughout history that went against the Jewish people. But if that was the goal, then we would have already achieved it. It's not. The goal is to wake up our brothers and sisters from their slumber and to make them realize that screaming Mashiach now is not going to help a single person. Because as loud as you scream Mashiach and as many dances and songs you come up with about Mashiach, he's not going to help those people that continue the same behavior that has led to our destruction in the past. Before the Holocaust, the situation that the Jewish world had as far as money was at its best. Everything that I just read was from 100 years to just literally right before the Holocaust. In so many words, the ultimate success of the Jewish people, financially, politically, socially, was right before the near complete annihilation of every single Jew alive. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had mercy on the Jewish people during the Holocaust. He didn't annihilate all of them. We had tzaddikim in the world that protected us. When Mussolini and General Rommel were preparing to conquer Egypt and then Eretz Israel, we had tzaddikim like Rabino Yaron gather a group of Mekubalim, Kabbalists, and do all types of prayers and tikkunim. Even at one point, doing kaparot in the air, going into a helicopter and flying around the entire border of Israel in order to plead with God not to allow these Nazis to enter Eretz Israel and kill all of us. And Baruch Hashem, it worked. But this didn't save every Jew. 6 million Jews murdered. Many more millions died a spiritual death as a result of their abandoning Judaism, either due to their lack of education about Judaism before the Holocaust, or simple disregard to it after. And the mentality of the self-hating Jew continued to evolve, so much so that you actually have some people call themselves modern Orthodox Jews, like this woman that was interviewed by Modi, who went to Yeshiva University. How a woman attends a yeshiva, I don't know, but apparently Yeshiva University is not really a yeshiva. And according to the New York State laws, it's not really considered a religious institution either. But how a person can go to a so-called religious Jewish school, but then publicly state how much she hates Judaism and all of the laws, has complete disregard to it. And Modi, the comedian, doesn't take advantage of the opportunity like a real Jew, but rather joins her by saying he also disagrees with much of the law and reinterprets the law himself on live radio or podcast or whatever it was. But he has no problem going to the Chabad house and other synagogues that he's a part of. They're still going to accept him, they're still going to welcome him, and still going to invite him to yeshivot to speak and to make people laugh. Meaning that today, our problem is no longer the reform mentality and even those that go to a different religion. Our biggest problem is people that are completely ignorant to Judaism altogether, similar to the past, to the point where they're just disconnected, and not enough people caring about bringing them back. Or people within our own communities, call it modern, call them Hasidish, call them whatever you want to call them, that have heretical mentalities, heretical ideologies, in line with the same ideologies that led to a near annihilation of the entire Jewish people. Every single time it happened. Now, while everybody's going to say, listen, Mashiach now, and everyone's going to say, be optimistic, and everyone's going to say a lot of things, let's check a few things. if you're really ready for Mashiach. The Gemara says in Masechet Avodah Zarah, in the first chapter, that once Mashiach comes, there's no more conversion. But some communities already forbid conversion now, and have been for a long time. Apparently, Mashiach arrived in those communities. I haven't seen that Mashiach yet. But apparently, he arrived in those communities. The new Sefer by Rebbe Ephraim has multiple subjects in it. One of them is Kuntres Hagerim, talking about converts, how great they are, how it's a gift to Am Yisrael from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have converts, where he takes the best of the nations and gives them as a gift to his children. But yet, converting to Judaism is unnecessarily difficult in some communities and impossible in others. Even if the people are studious, even if the people have the money, even if the people are doing whatever is necessary, still some make it difficult for no reason. The second part of Rabbi Ephraim's book is Ocheach Tochiach. You must rebuke. In the average community, if you tell people to be quiet while there's prayers in the shul, they'll yell at you for telling them to be quiet. And the rabbi will tell you no one's allowed to rebuke in this generation, as if there was a mitzvah from the Torah removed, chas v'shalom. The next section is Kuntres HaShoah. Many Jews have this question, where was God during the Holocaust? And only a few are willing to answer them the truth, which is that, what do you mean, where was God during the Holocaust? He's the one that did it. That's the answer. There is no other answer. No, but it's bad, so it must be something else. No. Believing it's anything else other than God punishing us is 100% heresy. Why? No one can help you or hurt you, individually or nationally, other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Satan is simply one of the messengers that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses. Malach Gabriel, Malach Michael, Malach Raphael, they all have jobs. There's all types of messengers, all types of employees that HaKadosh Baruch Hu have, servants. They do Hashem's will. No one does anything against Hashem's will. Where was God during the Holocaust? Where were the Jewish people before the Holocaust? We just learned. The Jewish people abandoned God well before HaKadosh Baruch Hu tried to remind them who He is. Kuntres Gehinnom. The average rabbi tells you that Gehinnom is simply embarrassment, or if you listen to Modi, Gehinnom doesn't exist according to Judaism. Worst case scenario, if you're a sinner, you just come back to this life again. So why don't you just do whatever you want? You could commit every heinous crime under the sun, and the worst case scenario is you're just going to get another life? Was it like a video game? What is it, Super Mario Brothers? You're going to go chase, and then you fall, so that you get another chance again? That's the world of God? This is the magnificent God that you believe in? You're just going to get endless amount of chances no matter what you do. No punishment, no suffering. This world has suffering. This world has agony. This world has Holocaust. This world has pedophilia. This world has disease. This world has the most horrific things you can imagine. But no, the upper world is lesser than this. According to Modi, you could be a Hitler, you could be a criminal, and God won't punish you. He'll actually give you another chance, no matter what. Rabbi Modi, you're fired. And whoever taught you this, you should perhaps go back to yeshiva, learn real Torah, because what you said is 100% apikosut. The average Jew does not know that Judaism, believes in Gehinnom, and that there are literally countless books, countless chachamim, 5,000 to 6,000 sources that I know of at least, to discuss the details of Gehinnom. This book only has 50 pages about it. That's it. Do you know how, if we took all the sources about the teachings of the afterlife, literally, the city would end. There would be enough space. But the average Jew doesn't hear any talk about it. Why? Because they want to pretend like there is no suffering. God only rewards. They turned the Creator into a vending machine, into a Santa Claus, into some video game, into some demented mentality that they have that simply rewards no matter what. And the Ramban in Shara Gmul says, people that think like that turn God into an evil God, because a God that doesn't punish is an evil God. Think about that for a second. In order to be good, there must be punishment. There must be a reward and punishment system. If you are a parent that only rewards the kid, you are a horrible, horrible parent. If you are a teacher that only rewards, you are a terrible teacher. Why? There must be a reward and punishment system. And you say, okay, but why does it have to be so bad? Why can't the punishment be something small? The greater the crime, the greater the punishment. Even a normal human being would understand that. If you commit a crime against your loved one, there's a certain type of punishment. If you commit a crime against an important person, there's a different punishment. If you commit a crime against a king, certainly a different punishment. If you commit a crime against the King of Kings, certainly a different level of punishment. When the average Jew does not know what Gehinnom is, what hell is, and thinks that it's a Christian belief, that means that they've literally know more about Christianity than they know about Judaism. And this problem is not just in the secular world. This problem is everywhere.
I've heard enough. New arrival screams echoing through the hallway to know that this ain't good. Once they pass them through the infierno, they don't come back. It's enough to make you go crazy.
Do not think we fear you, Spirit. We know your power is born of evil. This is your last night in the land of the living. You understand me, malevolent demon?
This is the cure you seek. Go within. Just know, once you've crossed that threshold, there is only one way out.
There was a rich family that lived here called the Hetheringtons, and unfortunately, their daughter passed away of a heart attack inside the house. Basically, they were so devastated that they reached out to people claiming to be psychic mediums. They actually weren't psychic mediums. They opened up a total of 11 portals inside this house and invited spirits and entities from all different kinds of dimensions.
Well, I think there are certain pieces of evidence that there is an afterlife.
Resurrection of the dead is affirmed pretty clearly in the Talmud and the Midrash.
To be honest with you, to give this lecture is a nightmare. If it was up to me, I wouldn't do it. There's going to be some graphic details.
This place is a maze.
The person after death went to a place called Sheol.
This is by far the largest near-death experience study that has ever been conducted.
People go to a place and they experience weird things. And sometimes they actually will see a character of some type. Well, where did that come from?
I don't know why that one chain is swinging back there.
They may describe feeling profoundly peaceful, seeing a bright, warm, welcoming light. Some people describe watching doctors and nurses working on them with incredible accuracy.
Next thing I knew, I was above my body watching the operation.
How long did you feel like you were gone?
I went to a place of timelessness. And so what that means, it could have been a second, could have been 5 minutes. I don't know.
Can you imagine waking up from your sleep and not being able to move?
As I'm lying there, I realized that there's an evil presence next to me.
Do you believe that angels, demons exist?
Holy shit, dude, get out of here! Oh my god, dude!
Strange things keep happening. Bizarre nightmares, as if I'm on fire.
Whoa, what the hell is this? Man, I've got bad chest pain.
Satan's Hollow is what it's called, the portal to hell.
Some people calling it an eye of fire, while others said it looked like the portal to hell opening up.
And the next thing I know, I was outside of my body, looking at my body.
What I'm going to do is called claromancy, the art of throwing lots or throwing bones.
2,000 years of experience, passed down, recorded, of how demons work.
God has them all on a leash, and he lets the leash go enough to let them tempt us, because that's what makes us spiritually stronger.
I'm trying to be as graphic as possible so you understand what we're talking about.
It's your ticket to reality. It's your ticket to freedom. It's your ticket to immortality.
Is there an afterlife? Is there a
It's
God?
the type of information that can keep you away from the Yetzirah.
What happens to us after we die?